Good day, viewers, and welcome to another edition of Sports in Focus. I'm your host, Fitzroy Prendergast, and of course, Sports in Focus is brought to you by Digital, the bigger, better GSM network. And our special guest today is, of course, Gordon Hutchinson, the president of the Jamaica Golf Association. Gordon, welcome to the microphones of Cable News and Sports.
Well, it's good to be here, Fitzroy.
Gordon, we want to start by looking at your life in golf, your life overall, and first of all, take us through your upbringing. You grew up in Barbados. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I grew up in Barbados. I was born in the country in Barbados, as you'd say. But the country in Barbados is only like half-hour drive from Bridgetown. Right. I grew up in the country from a pretty large family, 6 children to parents. My mother is still alive at 91, and my father died 2 years ago at 98. So we had a big family, and it was great life growing up in the country in Barbados. And of course, I went to school like most of my brothers at Hutchinson College, and I spent about 6-8 years at Hutchinson College playing all the sports and so on.
Tell us a little bit about your life in cricket, because obviously Barbados is one of the top teams and top cricketing nation in the region. Certainly you would have had to play cricket.
Yeah, I grew up at a time when there was Everton Weekes, Clyde Walcott, Frank Worrell, and those great stars and so on. And then, of course, later you had Sir Garfield Sobers. But as a youngster and from a big family, I said there were 5 boys. We played cricket practically every day, in the backyard, in the front yard, anywhere where there was an open piece of land.
Did you love the game that much?
Oh, I loved it passionately. I mean, it was the most beautiful game. There's no other sport as far as I'm concerned. I mean, cricket was the thing, and I had ambitions, of course.
Of playing for the West Indies?
Of course, yes. Why not? Every youngster in Barbados at the time had those ambitions, and I certainly played a lot of cricket. I played for my school. I played at different levels, and even after I left school, I played also cricket. And I played at the highest club level in Barbados at one stage.
Okay, so you are a pretty accomplished cricketer.
Well, I was a pretty good cricketer, but at the time I had pretty tough competition from people like David Halford, there was Robin Bino, and Tony King, and really some very, very good Barbadian cricketers who went on to do very, very well in Barbados cricket and in West Indies cricket.
So when you left Barbados, you basically finished high school in Barbados. Yeah. What about your university side of it? Did you leave Barbados to continue your university education? What was it like?
Yes, I left Barbados. After I left high school, I actually taught for 2 years at a secondary school, Commonwealth High School. And there I was exposed to hockey for the first time. Okay. So I played hockey, and I played first division hockey, and I enjoyed the sport tremendously. I say this because it might probably explain why I got into golf later on, because you're hitting a small round ball with a club, shape, something like it. And so I played cricket and I played hockey for Commonwealth School as a teacher, playing them up with the boys in the first division team. And from there I went to St. Augustine University of the West Indies campus in Trinidad, where I did civil engineering.
Okay. Yeah. How was the Trinidad experience for you? Coming from Barbados, how was the Trinidad experience for you?
Well, for one thing, in terms of sports, of course, I played cricket and hockey in Trinidad and enjoyed it tremendously. One thing which was different in Trinidad, we played on matting, on matting wickets, and my specialty was leg spin. So I bowled leg spin, and the ball would turn a mile in Trinidad. So I loved it.
So you loved it?
Oh yes.
Okay,
so, yeah.
Okay.
I got a lot of turn there. You could always find a wicket that was turning a lot. So on.
Yes.
So I enjoyed it, and after I left St. Augustine, I in fact came to Jamaica with the St. Augustine team, a sports team, for inter-campus games on the hockey side, which eventually didn't play. But I came with the team, and that's how I got introduced to Jamaica.
So you fell in love with Jamaica?
Yes, I did.
And I gather that you're married to a Jamaican, so you're still in love with Jamaica.
That's right. Yeah.
Tell us about the whole aspect of staying in Jamaica. What prompted you to stay in Jamaica, so to speak?
Well, initially, I did civil engineering, and I wanted to get some exposure into certain areas of civil engineering, which were not available in Barbados. In Barbados at the time, civil engineering practice was fairly stereotyped. One got into more or less building construction
Okay.
type work. There was not much civil works. You know, the major civil works going on at the time, which was before my graduation, in the case as an engineer, was the port, the Deepwater port, and the airport.
Okay.
There were some other roads and so on, but there was no major civil engineering works being carried out. And I was interested in some of the bigger projects which were taking place in Jamaica.
Okay.
At the
And
time.
part of the problem is that Barbados is pretty small. Jamaica is much bigger, so there's more.
There is more. There's a lot more scope in so many ways. And of course, the country was very beautiful, and that really was an attraction also.
Initially, did you meet your wife very early in the onset, or it was later down?
It was like about 2 years after I was here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your family. How many kids you've got, and you
Yeah.
know, are they
Okay.
golf oriented and stuff like that?
Well, my wife certainly isn't, but she has been
Okay.
very supportive
Right.
in the side. I have one son, Andre, who played junior golf for Jamaica,
Okay.
actually for a number of years. He's really quite a talented junior golfer, but you know, young people tend, and this is a problem we have to try to deal with. Young people tend to drift away from the game once in their early adult life, because there are other priorities in life. They start to look at careers and family and so on, and they tend to move away from golf. And of course, the cost of the game is also a deterrent for youngsters. So, but Andre plays occasionally now, just for fun, recreation, and so on. But I am really just the only golfer in the
Golfer
family
in
as
the
such.
family.
Yeah. Full-time
Okay.
golfer.
All right. Now that we've gone through that, let's get into a little bit more as it relates to golf.
Yeah.
You said after you got introduced to hockey, and then shortly afterwards, obviously, the move from golf to golf is not necessarily far. When did you realize that you love the sport so much that you want to get involved with golf at some level?
Well, it's an interesting characteristic of golf is that playing golf is the ultimate challenge. You're challenging yourself, and it looks simple when seeing other people play it, but once you take a club in your hand, you start to swing to hit the ball and realize it's not as easy as it looks. Then you start to try a little harder, and you realize it is a challenge, and then you find that you're challenging yourself, and thereafter it's a constant learning process, and you never stop learning. So I've been playing now 30 years, and I'm still learning. Every day, practically, I learn something new.
Tell us about your playing days. I mean, you would have played golf in Jamaica. Did you enjoy your golfing career in Jamaica? What was it like for you?
Yes, I've enjoyed it immensely. As a matter of fact, I enjoy it now as much as I did in the first few years, because I know so much more about the game, so much more about the mechanics and the finer points of the game, and especially some of maybe the psychological aspects of the game, which are so important, which we tend to take for granted. You know, we tend to take the psychological part for granted. We think we just go out there and try to hit the ball as far as it can go, but when it comes down to it, you'll find that if you look, for instance, at the professionals, they can all hit the ball great.
Yeah.
But when it comes to winning and knowing how to win, only a few can do it consistently. And that is usually determined by their mental capacity.
Excellent. Now, you have been president of the Jamaica Golf Association for quite a while. Tell us about the difficulties that you have had in terms of dealing with the sport in Jamaica.
Well, there are some difficulties which go back really to our history and aspects of our society.
Right.
Golf was always regarded as an elitist sport,
Right.
which is pity, because it's such a beautiful game, and it's a game that youngsters enjoy once they start playing. Adults enjoy it. There are many adults who start in the 50s and they enjoy a very interesting career in golf thereafter. But I find that this notion of it being an elitist sport has harmed the sport tremendously in Jamaica. golf was introduced in Jamaica from as far back as the 1860s, when the Manchester Club was established. And that is now the oldest golf club in the Western Hemisphere, older than any golf club existing in the United States or in Canada. But in spite of golf being here that long, and for instance, the Jamaica Golf Association was formed in 1925, which is quite a long time ago. And we've had golf courses all over Jamaica on the sugar estates. There were 9-hole golf courses, and many people played golf back in those days. A lot of those courses have now closed, but we have now the courses which are on the north coast, which serve mainly the tourist industry. We also have Constant Spring and Caymanas in Kingston, which service mostly the population of Kingston. But so the main challenges have been really that elitist image that the sport has had.
So you don't attract the masses?
We don't attract the masses. In the 70s, there was a bit of a major change in the whole face of golf in Jamaica, in the sense that prior to that, the main players in Jamaica were expatriates. And in the 70s, a lot of expatriates left Jamaica. And we saw an influx then of Jamaicans into the game. It was pretty slow at source, and gradually there are more and more Jamaicans taking up the game and so on. As you know, people generally observe that it was really a game for everybody and not really for the elite. And for Jamaicans or non-Jamaicans thought it was not a Jamaican sport. But since it's been here that long, it obviously has been a Jamaican sport.
The Jamaica Golf Association has taken some serious steps towards dealing with the whole stereotype. One is that there is now the Golf Academy, which is trying to remedy, you know, the lack of the masses playing the sport. How has that been coming on, Gordon?
That has been coming on fairly well. We are introducing a lot of new players to the sport through the Golf Academy, but I'm still not satisfied that we're getting enough, that the results are good enough. There are people who are introduced to it, but somehow I would say that we have maybe a 25% continuation ratio. Golf is not an easy game to learn. It's a pretty difficult game to learn to play, and you're not going to master it in a very short period of time unless you're extremely talented. If you're a ball player, a good ball player, you will learn pretty quickly and so on. But it's very, very challenging, and some people tend to give up very early. But we have seen a lot of new people coming into the sport, at least coming to the Golf Academy and practicing hitting balls and so on. We've introduced, for instance, like a ladies' night on Tuesday nights, and we invite ladies from all across Jamaica to come out to learn the basics of the game and so on, to get an introduction. And a number of them have been coming, and surprisingly, some of them look, are shaping up very well, and we think that's very promising. And we want to do that generally for everybody. And in fact, one idea we have is to have a rookie night where anybody can just come into the Golf Academy and they'll be introduced to the game.
Part of the problem I find, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that some of these things are not promoted as much as you would like. Because are you, for say, reaching persons in the inner city to say, okay, we have this program, we have a golf, a rookie night, or we have a ladies' night or a men's night? I don't know if some of these persons are getting the message, and if you don't get that sort of message to those people, you may have a problem with the masses.
Yeah, that's true. For instance, we have kept a register here of people who visit the academy from time to time, and we get their email addresses, and we send them emails to remind them of ladies' night and all the activities we have in here. But still, we don't get them all coming out. I mean, you may get on ladies' night maybe about 15 or so ladies coming out and so on a better evening. I think that's still very disappointing. I'm yet to see anybody who has been here on one of those evenings have had an introduction to the game, learn how to hit a golf ball, and have not been thrilled by the experience, and say, well, listen, I'm coming back next week. But as happens even with seasoned golfers, if you miss one night, it's a bit hard to come back because you think you have to come back and start from scratch again.
Right.
And it's difficult to pick back up again. So we get a fairly high dropout rate, but there are some who have been coming back consistently, and we are very pleased by that.
What is the plan to promote the sport across the island to make sure that all the facets of all the strata of the society is interested about golf, is hearing about golf, and is at least a little bit more understanding of the game?
Yeah. Well, I think our strategy is to really do it through junior golf. And we have quite a number of junior golfers playing golf at the moment. And there's a tremendous amount of talent that we've seen among the junior golfers. We've introduced it to inner city schools. We have programs now where inner city schools are participating. There are golf clinics or golf programs being run at a number of the golf courses around the island. At Runaway Bay, there's quite a good program. At Iron Shore, there's a big program also. There is also something going on at Cinnamon Hill and at Caymanas and Constant Spring. So, and here at the Golf Academy, of course. So we're trying to do it through junior golf to get more and more juniors involved. If the juniors involved, the parents will tend to support them. And those juniors who are playing now, and some that have gone on to represent Jamaica, their parents are really very much involved in it, and that's what we want to see.
The thrust towards youth development, and part of the thrust has got to be to get the youngsters playing consistently, and if the only way they can play consistently is if there are tournaments for them to play, and certainly corporate Jamaica must be involved. There seems to be a problem in getting consistently support, financial support, to host tournaments so that youngsters can play. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, we have seen over the last, I would say, 10 years or so, a great shift in terms of the support for golf. The shift for golf has really been towards charity golf, where golf is being used as a vehicle to raise money for charities. And charities have been doing tremendously well, and we have supported a number of charities in their fundraisings and so on. Unfortunately, corporate Jamaica gives much more readily to a charity golf tournament than they give to a golf development program for juniors and so on. And this is disappointing to us, and we are trying to show to the corporate Jamaica and to our sports development agencies that we have to develop the sport. We are a tremendous country when it comes to sports and so on. We've done extremely well in a number of sports, and I think that we can do just as well in golf.
Some of the youngsters that we have been accustomed to over the years, I was just speaking to a young lady outside playing golf. Yeah. She was the national under-17 champion. She left golf for 10 years, you know, and you were just alluding to that fact. How are you trying to woo them back to the sport, and what is the avenue to draw them back?
Yes, we are trying, and we are trying to get the clubs, the private clubs, because once one passes the junior golf stage and they become an adult, even a young adult, for them to continue to access the sport, they need to join a club, or they're going to have to pay green fees to play golf on a regular basis, and paying green fees every time you want to play golf can be expensive. So. But the clubs have been, to some extent, trying to accommodate these players by offering a lower membership fee and make it more accessible to them. We're trying to encourage the clubs to do this.
But let me ask you this. I mean, one of the things that is, I think, a deterrent to people playing golf in Jamaica, the masses playing golf in Jamaica, is that whole aspect of club membership. And one, there is a cost attached, and understandably, persons from the lower strata of the society may not be able to find all that money each time they want to play golf. Is there a way that the Jamaica Golf Association can facilitate, I mean, persons who want to play the sport of golf, but they don't have the financial resources necessarily every time to go to Caymanas Golf Course or another golf course in Jamaica? Because this will also have to be looked at if you want to draw the masses to the sport.
Yeah. No, of course, the ultimate solution would be a public golf course.
Right.
And that's really our long-term objective, to have a public golf course, or a municipal golf course. You know, a city the size of Kingston, for instance, if it were in the United States or Canada, probably have 4 or 5 golf courses that would be crowded.
Right.
We have 2 golf courses, and they are sparsely utilized on weekends, much less on during the week and so on. There's hardly anybody on the golf courses during the week here. So what we would really like is a public golf course, and that would help tremendously and so on. We still would have to have programs to introduce them to the sport, but we are trying to do that through the Golf Academy. It is relatively inexpensive to come to the Golf Academy and to be introduced to the game. You no longer have to join a club to learn to play golf. You can just walk into the Golf Academy, rent a club or borrow a club from a friend. There are lots of used clubs around that, because players tend to change their clubs fairly often. So you just need a couple of clubs, and you can come and you can learn the fundamentals, so that when you actually go to play, it can be a more meaningful experience, and you can work towards your development in the sport. So you have the Golf Academy is the vehicle that will help them to be introduced to the sport, and then now, of course, a public golf course is the next thing.
Have you guys, how far in terms of planning is a JGA in terms of seeking a public golf course?
We are not very far down that road as yet. We've had some discussions about it, and we've talked about it as part of the long-term strategy. Our immediate concern now is to introduce more people to the sport now through the Golf Academy. And once we get that momentum in terms of people coming to learn the sport, then we can then go to the authorities and say, look, we have a large number of people who want to learn to play the sport. We now need facilities for them to play.
Okay. Now that you have addressed that in terms of trying to get more people to play the sport, let's look a little bit more at the Golf Academy in detail.
Yeah.
Initially, when the Golf Academy started, there was a coaching director.
Yeah.
Is that still in place, and how is that going?
We no longer have a resident dedicated golf pro teaching here. We did have in the beginning a Scottish pro who came out for about a year, and but he eventually went back because there just were not enough golfers to support his program, because golf pros earn the income essentially from teaching and from instruction and so on. And he found it very difficult in Kingston to do so, just because the golfing population is so small. But of course, if he had twice as many golfers, it probably would have been quite feasible, and he probably would have still been around. We do have, though, a pro that is young Jason Lopez, who is the only practicing pro available in Kingston at the moment. But he services Constant Spring members, Caymanas members, as well as the Golf Academy.
So it's pretty stretched.
It's pretty stretched, yeah. He's pretty stretched, and he's very, very busy, especially working with junior golfers, which is very good. But I think we need some more assistance. But golf pros are very expensive, and the academy on its own could not afford to put on staff a golf pro. We would need special funding for that, and these are the areas where we would like to get some funding from, say, a Sports Development Foundation, to have a golf pro. They've done it in other sports, and I know netball and so on and other sports have had professionals that they brought from overseas to help them with the development program, and that's what we really need. We like to see a government-supported professional who can help us with the development of the sport.
So Jason Lopez is the only professional available. This basically is the fact that he's servicing 3 golf courses makes it a little bit challenging for him.
Yeah.
How do we then have a situation where other persons are brought into the fold to ensure that we have more persons to teach the game of golf to persons?
Well, okay. The pros generally live off of the fees they charge and so on. It might be difficult for 2 pros in Kingston at the moment to do that. It can
Because
probably
of-
support one,
Okay.
not two. So the second one would have to be subsidized, and this is where we need assistance. So if we have a pro whose basic income is subsidized, then I think we'd be in a position to offer free golf clinics to people who just walk in off the street, introduce them to the game, and also that golf pro can work with our development programs, with the juniors and so on development program, and for our seniors players who are representing Jamaica, and help to build the game at all levels, not just at the introductory level.
All right, take us through a little bit of what goes on here at the Golf Academy. You come in, you pay for your club, whatever it is, you go and learn the sport of golf. Does the association follow through with this person to say, okay, I see X player, and that player is a very good golfer. You know, we need to follow up with him to make sure that he's practicing, training consistently, so that we can get the transition from junior to senior and stuff like that.
Well, as a junior player would get into our junior golf program, and there they would have regular tournaments for the juniors and so on, and that usually culminates in the annual selection of a national team to participate in the Caribbean, for instance, junior amateur golf championships, which it moves around the region, as well as there are other events in North America. And this year, for instance, we had two juniors who went to England to play in the British Junior Open. So there are opportunities like that for development of players. But in terms of adult players, the path normally is that once one gets introduced to the game, it's a very slow learning process. They tend to attach to other players, who usually of similar standard or maybe a little bit better, more developed than they are, and they start playing, sort of practice rounds, and they get involved in competitions, and they gradually develop and so on. So there is not much guidance for them at that stage because we don't have a professional to provide it.
One of the criticisms of golf is that golf is probably boring to watch. I've heard it a lot of times, and people say, well, why would I sit around and watch golf on television? It's boring to watch. Now, is there anything that the sport can do to attract more, fun-loving persons? Because, I noticed when cricket was getting that rap, they started to have the beach at the Sabina Park and all that sort of thing, and people were coming in and receiving that sort of entertainment a little bit more, and therefore they were getting introduced to the sport of cricket. Now, is there anything that the golfing populace can do, the hierarchy of golf in Jamaica, to say, listen, let's get golf a little bit more attractive so that the fun-loving persons can annex themselves to the sport?
Yeah, well, on the international scene, you'd have noticed that that since Tiger Woods came into the sport and became such a big figure in golf and so on, the viewership has increased tremendously.
Certainly, yeah.
And whenever Tiger Woods is playing and so on, he has brought a new dimension to golf, even for spectators, even non-golfing spectators, for instance. And unfortunately, we don't have a Tiger Woods in Jamaica. But since Tiger Woods has been around, there are a lot more Jamaicans who were never interested in golf before, that would have considered the sport boring, now find it exciting and interesting because of his exploits and because he's such a fantastic golfer and an individual. Now, we think that in time we will get more and more Jamaicans as spectators and as followers of the sport and so on. I know some of our sponsors are very, very keen on getting golf accepted as a family activity, because golf is a great family sport. You can play, 3 or 4 generations can play together and have an interesting, enjoyable game. So it's very inclusive in terms of the total family. And there's some of our sponsors. I know one of our recent sponsors in an event, Ocean Spray, created that atmosphere at Caymanas in one of our charity tournaments and so on. It brought in really a lot of family members and so on. They came out to the golf course. They had a great time at the golf course. And I think this is one of the ways we can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing is the schools.
Yeah.
All the sports that really take off in Jamaica have a great school program where you have a lot of kids playing at the school level.
Yeah.
Golf suffers from that as well because suffers from the lack of participation in schools.
That's
and
right.
if you don't harness the talent from there, the interest wanes. Is there a foot to get golf into the schools and consistently played by youngsters?
Yes, and the way we want to do this is through the junior program again, because we are very close to introducing an inter-schools competition, annual inter-schools competition for golf. So you'll have schools competing just as they do in track and field. And
how soon will we see that, Gordon?
I would say by next summer you'll have an inter-schools competition. We are that close to that because we have a fairly large number of juniors now playing in the schools, and we will just have to introduce the tournament itself, and maybe we'll get to have someone donate trophies and so on to play for.
So that in itself is good because by that very token you're going to be having a lot of youngsters watching the sport. Have you considered the fact that you may not have enough golf courses to make the competition as interesting as you want? Because let's say you have 5 good schools, you may have a couple of students in St. Anne or in Mandeville or wherever who wants to play golf, or somewhere in Montego Bay, or somewhere else, St. Mary, Portland, who may not have golf courses, and they may want to play the sport of golf. How do you deal with that?
Well, fortunately and unfortunately, we have a lot of capacity on the golf courses right around the island. In Kingston, for instance, there's a lot of capacity on the golf courses during the week. On weekends, it's a little bit more difficult, but during the week, there's a lot of capacity. And the golf courses on the North Coast, during the winter months, they're fairly heavily utilized. The rest of the year, they're not. And therefore, you have probably 8 months of the year where there's a lot of capacity to take school kids and so on and playing golf. And a number of courses have been encouraging that to some extent because it helps to develop the relationship with the surrounding communities and so on. So the golf courses are there and available, and the operators are very amenable to the community using the golf course for junior golf development purposes and so on. So that should not be difficult. And we have golf courses, in Kingston, in Mandeville, along the North Coast from Ocho-Rios right around to Negril. So we have a pretty good coverage, I'd say.
Gordon, we're going to look at, of course, the whole aspect of your tenure. What have you been able to accomplish so far? You're in your 4th year as president of the Jamaica Golf Association. Take us through some of the successes that you've had as president.
Well, I would say the major achievement we've had is the establishment of the Golf Academy. This is something that I've been working on for a number of years, and my predecessors actually started a number of years before that. But this is something which has come to fruition. I think it's a very, very important step in the whole development of golf in Jamaica. I am particularly interested in the development of the sport and having the sport recognized and accepted by Jamaicans generally as a genuine sport which can be enjoyed by everyone. The other area which I have been working tirelessly on, and we are seeing some results, is that of golf tourism, because golf has a tremendous potential for earning foreign exchange for Jamaica, and we have very good golf courses on the North Coast, and even here in Kingston. I mean, the Caymanas Golf Course last week during the Caribbean Championships was hailed as one of the best golf courses in the Caribbean, and it was because it was in outstanding condition, and it's really a great golf course. So we have the golf courses in Jamaica for golf tourism. We're sitting next to the largest golf market in the world. You have 26 million Americans who play the game. Many of them like to travel regularly to play golf. We are just an hour and 20 minutes from North America. So we have all the factors that are necessary for a good golf destination development and so on. We have not been marketing ourselves very well at all, and this has been my disappointment. But I've been working tirelessly with our tourism promotion agencies and the golf properties to try to get them to boost the marketing and so on. I say once this is done, I think golf can prove to be a tremendous asset to the economy of Jamaica.
Why do you think that we've had so much problem marketing the sport of golf?
Again, it has to do with historical development of golf in Jamaica. In the 50s, golf was introduced to the tourism market, and a number of properties built golf courses, and they operate them as individual golf courses attached to specific hotels. Now, the golfing traveler, the real avid golfer who travels several times a year and plays a lot of golf, they do this in North America, they do this elsewhere in the Caribbean. They go to places where there are maybe 3, 4, or 5 golf courses in an area that they can play during one visit. But since our golf courses were attached to maybe a single hotel, or there was only one golf course attached to each hotel, it meant that this limited the scope for golfers playing a variety of golf courses, which is the attraction. If I went on a visit to any country or any resort and there was only one golf course, I'd probably go and play the golf course the first day, and after the second day there wouldn't be much more interest for me to go and play it because I've seen all the challenges of that golf course and so on. But if there were 3 or 4 golf courses, I would want to play them all to enjoy the different challenges and so on.
That's an excellent point. So what you're suggesting is that because although there's an influx of golf courses on the North Coast, the fact that maybe super clubs have one, another one is owned by another one, and another one is owned by another one, and there is not this exchange of golfers across these areas, it tends to mitigate against the support and the enjoying, the spectators enjoying the sport. Yeah,
they never had the marketing sort of infrastructure to package golf in such a way that a visitor can come and in one package, pay for a package, and have his hotel accommodation at one of the hotels, and entitle him to play golf at 3 or 4 golf courses during that visit. This is something which you can enjoy in, say, in Myrtle Beach or Hilton Head in South Carolina, or Pebble Beach, in North Carolina, in Ireland, in Scotland, Portugal, in Dominican Republic, in Puerto Rico, and also this is now developing in Barbados to some extent, and St. Kitts has come out of the sugar industry and are going into the golf industry, the golf tourism industry. They're building golf courses. So we have to get our marketing together to be able to take advantage of these opportunities.
Have you promoted this idea, so to speak, to the various operators of the golf courses in the North Coast specifically?
Yes, we have done this, and in fact, about 4 or 5 years ago, we approached government about it and so on, and eventually we were able to arrange for a study to be done on golf, on the feasibility of developing Jamaica as a golf destination. We arranged a whole study. We went out and got funding from a number of agencies, overseas agencies as well as local agencies, and we got this study carried out by a golf tourism consulting firm in the United States. Following that study, the Tourism Product Development Company carried out a follow-up study, which is still now being evaluated, and at the stage now where an implementation plan is about to be launched. And I think this is where we are beginning now to see some action and some movement in this area. And hopefully within a matter of a couple of months or so, we should see the implementation of a golf development, our golf tourism development program.
Gordon, I wanted to go back a little bit for me as it relates to the whole aspect of this Golf Academy, because it's very important for our viewers to understand the genesis of this Golf Academy. How did it all start, Gordon?
Okay, it started back, I would say, in the late 80s, early 90s. But even before that, there was, back in the early 80s, I'd say, a couple of professionals got together and actually had a small driving range operating on Ligony lands just next to us here at the Golf Academy. That was not very well organized. There was no prepared ground. They just used a bit of open land and so on. But we had tried the Jamaica Golf Association back in the mid 90s, around 1995 and so on. Approached the Ligony Club and suggested, look, that they lease the land to us to operate a golf academy and a driving range. And we cleared the land, we got it surveyed and so on. And we tried to raise the funding. We approached government again for funding to help with the construction of the driving range and golf academy. We weren't successful in getting the funding, so the project really went dormant for a number of years. And interestingly, in 1990, around about 1995, 96, the Urban Development Corporation took over came on us from Ligony Club, and they had leased it to Ligony Club, and Ligony Club was operating, but they weren't doing so successfully, and so the UDC took it over. They rebuilt the clubhouse that was there, and they took it over with the intention of creating a housing development, an upscale housing development, which is still very much on the cards and has in fact commenced as far as a model house is concerned. Their consultants at the time, a golf consulting firm, advised them that it would be best to ensure the membership of that community, to have golf be the central theme, which would help to raise the level of housing and the availability of the amenities and so on at Caymanas. And to be able to create and develop that market, they felt it was needed to create more golfers out of the city of Kingston, which had, probably in the greater metropolitan area close to 1 million people, many of whom had the were of the demographics that would support golfing membership at Caymanas and be able to support that housing community. So they advised and recommended the construction of a golf academy and driving range here. I think out of that, the Urban Development Corporation built the golf academy. Okay. And it was opened in 2002 by the now Prime Minister.
Tell us a little bit about how this academy, are there anything that you need to have happen to this academy that has not been done just yet? Are you, of course, do you have further plans for this academy that has not been materialized just yet? And what are they?
Yeah, well, one of the limitations we have here is that the nets are not high enough, the perimeter nets are not tall enough. As a result, balls can fly over the nets, especially if you use your wood clubs. And we've had to restrict then use of clubs to irons, which generally keep the ball lower and in fact within bounds. This has, in a way, has restricted the use of the academy because there are a number of golfers who just like to use their drivers and to bang away at the ball. And although, from my experience, I think it's better off spending your time practicing with your irons and practicing your short game and so on. But the fact is that we have not been able to use wood clubs as we would like, and therefore a lot of our members and a lot of our golfers don't come out to use the wood clubs. So one of the things that we would like to do is really to have the nets, the perimeter nets, increased in height to take care of this problem. The other thing that we would like to have some more equipment here, which would be like used as teaching aids, like video cameras and simulators and so on, which would be able to help. And of course, all under the direction of a resident teacher.
Well, how feasible is that in the near future, Gordon?
It is all left to come down to the availability of funding, and we are we are trying in many ways to try to increase the use of this facility, not just through golf, but through other activities and so on, which will generate revenue, which will help us to put back into the improvement of the facility and development of some of these capabilities in terms of what we can do for the development of the player.
Having outlined all the difficulties that golf, the sport of golf, is having, take us through some of the things that the federation, the association rather, is doing to ensure that, yes, we get a lot more golfers playing the sport. I know that there is scholarships to be earned from playing the sport in Jamaica. Tell us a little bit about those scholarships and what the JGA is doing to try desperately to get more persons to play the sport so that inevitably more sponsors can be attracted to the sport of golf.
Yeah, okay. Now, we started with our junior programs. We're trying to get more and more juniors from the schools, the high schools, and the inner city involved in the sport and playing the sport, and laying out for them a career path, a development path, where they can continue and play the sport once their game gets to a higher and higher standard. They can play in tournaments, maybe local tournaments, regional tournaments, and international tournaments, where they're exposed to scouts from various universities and schools in the United States and elsewhere, and through this they can get opportunities for scholarships and so on. Now, this is a tremendous attraction in any sport, in fact, where one can get a university education through their, through participating in a particular sport. The other areas, of course, would relate to the development. For instance, last week we had here the Caribbean Amateur Golf Championships. It was a very highly successful event. I think we got quite good coverage in the media generally, and I think the general observer would realize that, it was a high-class event, tournament. Great golf was played by, saying not as well by our players as we had hoped, because we had hoped that we would win all the sectors of that tournament, all the categories. But in fact, we won the ladies category, and I would like to again compliment them on a tremendous performance. Mm-hmm. But we had some good performances also from other players. Jamaicans would have seen this through the media, and the support of the media is very important in this respect. Jamaicans would have seen that performance, to see the good light in which golf was shown throughout that week of the Caribbean Amateur Golf Championships. Therefore, the game, I think, is getting more and more publicity. We will continue to work with the media and encourage the media to be involved in the sport. For instance, we welcome the media to come to the Golf Academy and use the facility here and learn, because the media has to help carry that message for us. And one of the problems with golf generally is that we don't have enough people in the media who are commentating on golf who are familiar with the game, to the extent that they can go to and help promote the sport and so on. So things which might be happening in the sport internationally and locally sometimes may not get the attention that they should, and that we would like to see them get, because that will help in terms of development and so on.
Do you ever think of bringing down golfers, top golfers to Jamaica to enhance the reputation of golf in Jamaica? Of course, the basketball, recently the basketball guys had a camp where they had some NBA players coming down, and that fostered the interest. Have you guys ever thought about, bringing down top golfers to Jamaica, and therefore bringing in the kids to have a little camp for them, so that you can engender the love for the sport of golf?
Yeah, well, we tend to do this through tournaments and through competitions and so on. And there are a number of events that are held. Sometimes they are charity events, where celebrities come down, for instance, and there's a lot of publicity to those events, and that gives some amount of publicity, which helps tremendously, and so on. We have over the years organized the Jamaica Open, which was our major golf event. Unfortunately, we have not had it for the last 11 years. We're hoping to have it back again this year, to get it started on a pretty small scale, but we want to get it started again. Mm-hmm. And events like that will bring golfers here. There are golfers who are playing now on the PGA Tour and who are doing very well on PGA. You see them on the leaderboards for the first 2, 3, 4 days of an event and so on. and they're doing well, and there are recognizable names, people who have participated in our Jamaica Open. Stephen Ames is one, for instance. He played, I remember, in the 1995 Jamaica Open. People like Bruce Fleischer, Jim Thorpe, you know, Woody Austin, a number of guys who have been doing very well on the PGA Tour. So through the events like the Jamaica Open, we can bring foreign players here and so on.
One of the things that I would also recommend in football and cricket, you know that football and cricket has a synergy, because a lot of the persons who play cricket play football, right? Once you're a good ball player, as you had indicated, what you notice as well is a lot of the top cricketers play golf as well. So I'm thinking that maybe it could be a synergy between the Cricket Association and a lot of these young cricketers who are there who play cricket, you know, would also, you know, by touching base with the Cricket Association, get them to be involved in golf, so that you have a lot more mass to draw upon, and therefore you may be able to expand the mass of persons that, you know, play the sport. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you, definitely, because, you know, in the United States now, for instance, there is what they call a Celebrity Players Tour. The Celebrity Players Tour is made up of sportsmen who've played practically every other sport you can think of. And you have players on that tour, like, I mean, all the top NBA players, footballers, Yvonne Lendl of tennis, in fact, plays on that tour. There are a number of top sportsmen who play. Golf is a sport that every sportsman enjoys playing. Even during the peak of their careers, they still play golf in the off season and so on, because it helps them to relax quite a bit and so on. And they enjoy it, and they still can be very competitive. As a matter of fact, on the Celebrity Players Tour, they play very competitive golf, and there are a number of players who shoot under par golf in those events. So another thing which we observe too, for instance, whenever there's a test tour to the Caribbean, and cricketers come here from test players from England, Australia, New Zealand especially, and from the other countries as well, but particularly those three, the golf courses are full on the off days, on the weekends. Almost all those cricketers play golf. Exactly. And even a lot of our West Indian players play golf as well. You know, for instance, Desmond Haynes was a good golfer even before he started playing cricket. Yeah. You know, Gordon Greenwich plays. Viv Richards is a good player. Right? Ian Bishop. I mean, and of course, you know, Maurice Foster and Jeff Dujon are very good golfers themselves. Right. And we are trying to get Ambassador Courtney Walsh involved also playing.
Exactly. So that would help in promoting the sport.
Correctly. Yeah.
You also have a situation where there are persons who don't necessarily feel that there's enough tournaments, golfing tournaments in Jamaica to support, you know, the sport. What would you say to that?
Well,
you have one or two big tournaments, but the rest of the year it's basically, you know, not as high profile as such. Your thoughts on that?
Well, in fact, we have too many tournaments, but we have the wrong types of tournaments as far as the development of the sport is concerned. We have a lot of charity tournaments, as I mentioned earlier. Charity tournaments are basically fun tournaments. They're not there to help to develop the sport. They're not there really to help to bring out our best players and so on. They're there strictly to raise money for charity, which we support wholeheartedly. But we would like to see more of the funding which goes towards charity golf to in fact go towards the development of sport, which will help to create in fact more golfers and would make it probably even more lucrative for charity tournaments down the road. But at this point in time, there is an overemphasis, I think, in terms of just fun golf and not serious golf, development golf.
How much of an influence does the Jamaica Golf Association have over the private clubs in Jamaica?
We have a very, very good rapport with the private clubs. We work pretty closely, and they get us involved in most of the events and so on that they're doing. We're trying also to try to develop a better relationship with the charities, good? And to organize their events for them and things like that, to ensure that they run properly, because that has been a concern of ours and a concern of a number of potential players in charity tournaments, that they're not always very well organized, or they're not always very well managed to ensure that the rules are adhered to properly and so on. That is improving as we have more and more charity tournaments, and there's more and more professionalism being brought into the management of those events and so on. But certainly, in terms of the funding, you know, we are still at a disadvantage in the Jamaica Golf Association. We are not able to get the charities supporting the development of the sport, development of the vehicle, which is in fact carrying them to where they want to go in terms of raising money for the charities.
Now, the concern in wrapping up, Gordon, that we want to address, are we in a situation where, although we have the Jamaica Golf Association, the parent body for golf in Jamaica, we have some private golf clubs, as you had indicated, and these golf clubs, obviously, their aim is to, one, play golf, but primarily to maintain, to ensure that they are remain viable. How do we get a synergy between allowing players who are probably based on the recommendation of the JGA to use that their facilities much more, with less emphasis being on membership fees and more on the development of golf, so that you can have more people coming off the street and flooding Caymanas golf course and flooding the other one, and ensuring that you have the mass, then you'll be able to generate the revenue from that.
Exactly, and I think it's really an interesting marketing exercise, because, you know, it's the cost of access to golf could be so much lower if we had, say, twice as many golfers out there. You know, because it takes as much money to maintain a golf course if you have 300 members as if you had 600. But at 600 members, maybe your membership fees could be 60% of what they are now, and you'll be viable. So it is in interest of the clubs, and remember that the clubs, most of the clubs are in fact members of the association, because we have two classes of members. We have individual members and we have club members. Okay. So the clubs themselves are members. So we work pretty closely together, and they're usually very supportive, you know, in almost anything that we do, because I think the clubs realize that we are an integral part in terms of the development of the sport, in terms of creating new golfers and so on. We tend to organize the tournaments, and we tend to organize maybe clinics and for juniors, and to get new people into the sport and so on.
Who is the best golfer that you've ever seen, Gordon?
It would have to be Tiger Woods, of course.
Why?
Because Tiger Woods, as they would say, is a total package. He not only has the physical capabilities, but he's a tremendously strong mental person. Psychologically, he can go there, decide on a strategy or a game plan, and stick to it. And this came out quite vividly in the recent Open tournament in England, where he won, you know, by a tremendous performance on the last day, even although there was competition. But he stuck to a game plan, and he played not his usual type of game. That is not the long off the tee and then trying to hit short irons into receptive greens. He laid back. He used shorter clubs and laid back, but more accurate clubs, to ensure that he was on the fairway, where he had a better chance of getting the ball to the green, rather than get into trouble using his driver and hitting it maybe into the rough and so on. And this takes a tremendous amount of mental strength and courage to do. Golfers, you know, will often step up on a tee and will think, well, we'll look at something where they have maybe a 10% chance of getting the ball in a good area. They tend to take risks and chances like that. Whereas it might be better to play what they call a higher percentage shot, you know, where you're sure you're going to be in a safe place to make your second shot, even although it makes the second shot a little bit more difficult. But at least you get the first shot, tee shot, out of the way, and you're in a safe position to attack the green. And this is what Tiger Woods has done so successfully. And he's such a great role model for young golfers who are trying to develop their game.
Can you pinpoint any youngster in Jamaica that, given the right development program, given the right circumstances, could develop into a fantastic golfer internationally? Are we in possession of any golfer, junior golfer maybe, that has such a potential to go all the way?
We see quite a lot of them. That's the amazing thing. We see quite a lot of golfers who show tremendous ability and so on. But sometimes, for various reasons, they're not able to follow through with it. Sometimes there are other pressures in their lives. Sometimes there might be pressure just to cope with the challenges of living. They may not have the resources to be able to get the kind of coaching and to practice as much and to go and play in the tournaments. You know, if one wants to become a really very good golfer, you have to play a lot of competitive golf. You have to play a lot of tournaments. It means it's going to mean traveling outside of Jamaica quite a lot to be able to play in these tournaments. To get that level of competition, you need to really build your game, and that can be quite expensive. But we have a number of tournaments in Jamaica, and we would like to see a lot more of our youngsters participating in these tournaments. But there are also the costs involved in that. So I think resources are really the major limiting factor in all of this.
Final question, Gordon. How do we get the young golfers to replace the older guard? Not totally, but certainly I was covering the Caribbean Golf Championship. I noticed there was a lot of middle-aged persons representing Jamaica. Nothing is wrong with that, but you want to also have a transition, so you have youngsters moving from the junior level to the senior level, so that you can consistently have quality golfers at the top. How do we get that transition going?
Well, it has to be through our regular tournaments. We have a number of qualifying tournaments each year, and we hope that these young golfers will come out and participate and sort of pit their skills against the more experienced players. And eventually, and we are seeing some youngsters. We had like 2 or 3 young golfers on our Herman Cup team and so on. We had 3 players who would have been in their 30s, but the others would be like in their 20s, in the early 20s and so on. And there are some other youngsters who are coming along now who we expect in the next year or two to be. In fact, in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe all our players will be in their 20s, and that's where we expect it to be.
Gordon Hutchinson, we want to thank you very, very much for stopping by. Of course, taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. It was a really enlightening interview. I certainly learned a lot. Thank you very much, Gordon Hutchinson.
You're welcome, Fitzroy, and I hope that you'll come back to the Golf Academy and try to hit a few balls. Maybe you can get you out there playing with our Jamaica team.
Certainly, I'll try. I am not as good as Maurice Foster, but I'll try. That was Gordon Hutchinson, the president of the Jamaica Golf Association, and of course we had a fantastic time talking to Gordon Hutchinson about golf in Jamaica, the challenges that the Jamaica Golf Association face, and of course one of them is certainly sponsorship, and we want to encourage all the persons, all the corporate entities that have golf at the heart to ensure that they give the support to the Jamaica Golf Association, and certainly the Academy, which is right here in Kingston. On behalf of